Welcome back to Yes, I'm Adopted, Don't Make It Weird. This week we're going to be talking about hashtag triggers, specifically the idea that adoptees should be grateful. Lord, that was like a...
Aren't you grateful? The reason why we're talking about this is because we just went to a conference in Indiana, which was amazing. Shout out to the team. They actually made us mugs that we will showcase next week because we both forgot them at home because we've been really tired since the conference. It's like a 5-hour drive.
It's way more interaction with other humans than we usually have.
Yeah, interacting with people's hard. People were asking questions at the very first keynote. Reshman was up there. She's speaking about her story and, filling the background. And one guy with probably the best intentions, right?
Which is always how it is.
I don't think he meant anything by it because he said he's adopted himself. But he asked the question and prefaced it by saying, so in hearing your story, I did not hear that you were grateful for your adopted parents or birth parents in it. Because apparently he was searching for his birth parents because he wanted to thank them for giving him the life that he has now.
Right.
Which is honorable. That's fine.
Sure.
But when he said that, the whole room groaned all at once.
It was amazing.
It was just, oh.
Ooh, like you felt the tide.
Oh my gosh, like your heart just like skipped a beat in that moment. Like, I am not an empathetic guy typically, but I felt for the man in that moment.
That was rough. It was really rough. And I felt all the things that all the people felt, and then you also felt like
for the guy too.
For the guy, and then the turn, and then like it was so it was difficult, but also kind of hilarious.
It was hilarious.
And Reshma did a fantastic job dealing with the whole crowd and doing everything. But
calming
oh my
people
gosh,
back down.
man, like
it was so funny because that was the very first keynote. It's morning, everybody welcome. Reshma's here to speak. Aren't you grateful? Ugh. And that was the start to the conference.
That was the beginning of that first thing.
Oh my goodness, it was hilarious.
Fantastic.
We decided that we're going to talk a little bit about some of these triggers and how we've dealt with them, specifically sitting on the topic of, are you grateful as an adoptee?
Sure.
Let's get this out of the way. Yes, I am grateful to my adoptive parents. I am grateful to my birth family that I don't know. Okay, there, I'm done. Now what? End of episode, right? I guess.
Like, the real answer to that is basically, yeah. I mean, for the most part, yes. As far as we're concerned, we're grateful human beings.
Yes.
But because we choose to be, right, we've decided to be.
It took a lot of doing to get there.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that
and specifically not because it is expected of us, which is kind of where the trigger and all the problems come in, right? Like, you expect me to be grateful because I'm adopted, so therefore, never talk to me.
Right.
Like,
because you saved me from the life I was going to live without you, so I am eternally grateful.
It's
so cringy.
It's very cringy.
I love it.
Okay, so part of the reason that this is such a hot button topic for adoptees specifically is because you're asking us if we feel grateful about our trauma.
Yes.
And our grief.
Yes.
And all of the things that are difficult that we have to work through. And the expectation is that, we're supposed to feel grateful. And a lot of people ask this question, I think, not maliciously.
No.
Right? They're not out to really try to hurt anybody or anything. A lot of the time, and the vast majority of the time that I've been asked that question is just out of ignorance.
Yes.
Right? The expectation is that the life we were going to lead prior to adoption was going to be awful.
This is going to be terrible.
Right?
We were going to go nowhere. Probably starve to death in the corner street somewhere.
That was it.
Yeah.
Right? And so the life that we're leading now, therefore, by default, is fantastic.
It's so much better.
Now,
boo.
That's just boo, right? The lives that we specifically are living, are pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? And that's pretty great. But there are many, many stories out there of adoptees who were adopted into families with whom they'd either never meshed, or there's some abuse story, or like it runs the whole gamut, right?
They're all over the place, unfortunately. Yes.
So just the expectation that would be the norm is what makes that so cringeworthy.
It's so triggery to people. Seriously, again, the room instantly. You can cut the tension, like right in the room.
It was amazing.
That was the best thing. So okay, let's talk about the what we had to go through in order to actually get to gratefulness, though, because it is a valid question to him. We can't disregard other people's experiences or questions. Just because they're not your experiences or thoughts or questions or anything like that doesn't mean that you can say it doesn't work for somebody else, or it's not somebody else's place in life where they're at. And so he had a very valid question about being grateful, because that's the path that he's walking right now.
Right.
Is the path of being grateful towards his birth family that gave him up. So again, applaud that, to be quite honest, because it takes a lot to get to that point where you're actually not bitter at the family that you could have had for giving you up. That does take some work getting through.
It does.
But the whole premise, like David was talking about, that all adoptees need to be grateful, is just a ludicrous one. Let's talk a little bit, I guess, about what we had to do in order to get to where we're at. The thought process, the life change, the questions that we had to ask ourselves in order to get to where we are now, because we're pretty happy, content people. You know, we're not bitter about things, and somebody pointed out that we're not all daisies and rainbows about adoption either, because there are real legitimate problems out there and a lot of trauma that you have to deal with. So, Davo.
Yes, Brett.
You ready?
No.
Okay, take a sip.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it. So what kind of questions did you have to ask yourself in order to get to this place of contentment? Where you're not like grateful for everything, but I mean you are content with where you're at.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Contentment is hard, right?
It's very hard.
And that's such a bigger, deeper human question than it is just about adoptees.
Right. It's that 80-20 thing.
Right, because contentment is just something that's so difficult for us as people to come across.
Yes.
And then you go the step further and expect that somebody that's been through trauma and grief has already processed it and come to contentment, right? Which is where the trigger comes in.
Yes.
But that's it in a nutshell, right? We have to process our grief. We have to process our trauma. In practical terms, I've read a lot of self-help books.
Read a lot of things. Or have a friend that has read a lot of things, so you don't have to read a lot of things.
And then be willing to sit and let him spew words at you for hours at a time.
Listen, I'll just get lectured on the stuff later. It's okay. I'll sit in this chair over here and I'll nod my head and maybe play Angry Birds at the same time.
Seems to work out for us.
Yeah.
But my contention is that grief and trauma are to be embraced. There are things that happened, and regardless of how they came about, there are things that you need to face and let be a part of who you are, so that you can experience the joy and the contentment and the gratefulness or gratitude on the other side of it.
That's good.
I think that we've all experienced something, and it's our prerogative and necessity to just let those things permeate ourselves,
right,
so that we can come through, and that's where contentment is found, is on the other side of whatever processing that takes.
Yeah. And this might be, it's not necessarily taking a left turn from this, but I kind of want to talk about this whole I have a right to be angry and bitter thing.
Okay. Sure.
Because there's a lot of people that say, it's my prerogative to be bitter. If I don't want to be okay with it, I don't have to be okay with it. And I'll say to a certain point, yes, it's true. You have a right to your own feelings. I can't control that. But I'm going to take it a step further and say, if it's impacting those around you, those that care about you and those that you care about, is it so much a right or is it a responsibility at that point?
Is it helping?
Yeah.
That's honestly been my question, I think, is to say, I have a right to be mad. I have a right to question things. I have a right to have these intense emotional feelings, I suppose, if I do have them. But are they helpful?
No. It probably isn't. You know, like we've dealt with the anger, we've dealt with the frustration, we've dealt with the sadness that being adopted brings to the table. But if that's all we dwelt on and that's all we thought about the whole time, and that became our identity, our families would hate us.
We wouldn't have families.
They would be so tired of us whining all the time and just being angry. And it's not helpful at a certain point. And that's what people need to get. This is going to sound a little ranty, but people just, they need to stop being so bitter and so upset just because that they can be bitter and upset.
Sure.
Because there's people around you that are depending on you. There's people around you that want to love you, that want to care for you, and that require love and care from you. For you to just spend all of your time in a corner whining, woe is me. And again, this sounds really mean, because it probably is really mean.
It's a little mean.
But I'm going to say it anyways, because I'm a little mean.
That's true.
Actually, I'm really mean. Let's be real.
I know. It's important to feel the things. It's important to process them. It's important to embrace them. But it's very important to not let those things define you.
Yes. I'm going to do the hand raise emoji right here.
Right here?
Hand raise emoji.
Right.
Yeah, I am the hand raise emoji.
Okay.
This is the new hand raise emoji.
Specifically, we've been talking about adoptees. In a general sense, we're talking about all humans.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, because it comes up, adoptive parents also, before you try to lead your kids through this, you need to deal with your crap. I think that's true for everybody, though, right? Like,
yes.
as parents with children of our own,
right?
Like, I look at my kids, and there's stuff that I'm going to have to help them deal with, but it's going to be impossible for me to do that until I've dealt with my things.
Yes.
And it's important for me to deal with my things, and I'm dealing with them, right? In order to be a benefit and a guide and a parent for my family. And that's going to be the same for you regardless of your scenario.
Yeah, you don't want your kids going through the hard things that you had to go through. If they can learn from it before they have to deal with it, let's teach them. So figure out your issues, your problems beforehand before you try to fix somebody else. It's that whole thing with an airplane, when the oxygen mask comes down,
right.
You have to put your own on before you can help somebody else, because you're trying to help them and you black out before.
Now you're both screwed.
There's nothing that you can do. Same exact concept in parenting. Take care of yourself before you try to fix other people. Also, don't try to fix us. Just stop that. Stop trying to fix me. That was for you.
Well, then stop sitting in the chair.
That's true. I guess I brought that upon myself.
Part of the reason that the gratefulness issue is such a trigger to adoptees is because it's essentially infantilizing. It's saying that we're still children who are expected to feel a way because we're not mature.
Yes.
Or we're not able to have our own thoughts about a thing, or that's it's just such a way to keep us believing that we're still children, and that's a huge deal for especially adult adoptees.
Yes.
Because every time something comes up that is essentially keeping the truth from us, or keeping our feeling or our whatever from us, we still feel like kids because we're not to be trusted with the full everything, the full truth. So that's definitely part of the reason that exists.
So that's it for today. We wanted to keep this episode a little bit shorter because we've been going longer in some of the other ones. Let us know if you guys like the longer format, if you're okay with it. We have actually seen a spike in views on some of the longer stuff, but we would love to be able to hear your guys' feedback if it's worth watching a 15-20 minute video, or if you're tired of looking at our faces after 30 seconds, because editing it, I know I am. So as always, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'd love to be able to hear feedback from you guys on whether you found this content useful or not. We're going to be starting a new mini-series inside of the series that we're currently doing right now. We're going to be going over a book study. It's going to be talking about
Beneath the Masks, which we've talked about here on the channel before. They have 6 kind of roadblocks that they say occur for both adoptees, adoptive parents, and kind of everybody in the triad. And we're going to discuss how we've dealt with those roadblocks and how they've impacted us as adoptees.
So you do not want to miss that. Make sure you guys tune in every Tuesday at around 5 o'clock. And also we will see you on the Weekend Update Saturday at noon. We love you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Davo, I'm not going to do an outro, so you can do one here.
Still don't have one.
Well, this is awkward.
With roll credits. Fade to black. Dissolve.